Those words almost sound unreal. In a franchise defined by greatness, Bradshaw, Lambert, Harris, Green, how could one of the pillars of the steel curtain be forgotten? He wasn't loud. He didn't chase headlines. But when the game was on the line, quarterbacks feared one name more than any other: L.C. Greenwood, the man with the gold shoes. The quiet storm behind Pittsburgh's dynasty. From a small town in Mississippi to the grandest stage in football, and finally, to the mystery of why his bust still doesn't sit in Canton. This is a story of dominance, dignity, and the injustice of being overlooked by history. Welcome to Black and Gold Legacy, where we honor the triumphs, heartbreaks, and forgotten heroes who built the Pittsburgh Steelers empire. If you love stories of grit, glory, and greatness, make sure to like, share, and subscribe. Because today, we're bringing you the untold story of L.C. Greenwood, the legend they left behind. Early life, from Mississippi to the dream. L.C. Greenwood was born on September 8, 1946, in Canton, Mississippi, a small town where life was simple, tough, and full of lessons. He grew up one of 9 children, in a hard-working family that taught him discipline, humility, and the value of effort. As a quiet kid, Greenwood wasn't the biggest or strongest, but he had something special: focus. Football became his escape and his purpose. At Canton High School, he stood out for his speed, reach, and relentless drive. He didn't have fancy equipment or recruiters chasing him, but what he had was work ethic. Every extra rep, every late practice, every tackle made him better. Even when colleges didn't come calling, he refused to quit. That determination would soon lead him beyond Mississippi, to a small college in Arkansas, and eventually to the foundation of one of football's greatest dynasties. College days, Arkansas A&M and the hidden gem. After high school, L.C. Greenwood didn't have recruiters knocking on his door. He wasn't from a powerhouse program, just a small-town kid chasing a big dream. So when Arkansas A&M, a small HBCU, offered him a chance, he took it. At first, Greenwood was lanky and raw, but he had one thing that couldn't be taught: drive. He spent hours refining his stance, studying technique, and learning to use his height and speed to his advantage. By his junior year, he had become a force. Opposing teams started double-teaming him, but it didn't matter. Greenwood's quickness off the line was unmatched. He earned all-conference honors and quietly built a reputation as one of the best small-school defenders in the country. Even so, he remained largely overlooked by NFL scouts, just another hidden gem from a small college. But fate had bigger plans. In 1969, one team saw what others missed, and that would change his life forever. The 1969 draft, joining the rebuild. The year was 1969. The Pittsburgh Steelers were a struggling franchise, desperate for change. That spring, Chuck Noll took over as head coach and began rebuilding the team from the ground up. In the 10th round of the draft, Noll took a chance on a tall, skinny defensive end from Arkansas A&M, a small school few had heard of. His name, L.C. Greenwood. At first, no one expected much. He was raw, underweight, and coming from a tiny program far from the national spotlight. But Chuck Noll saw something others didn't: potential, discipline, and intelligence. Greenwood arrived at training camp quiet but determined. He studied every drill, asked every question, and stayed late to perfect his technique. While others relied on size or strength, he relied on precision. By his second season, coaches realized they'd found a gem. Greenwood's combination of speed, length, and relentless effort made him impossible to ignore. Soon, he earned a spot on the starting line, the foundation of what would become the legendary Steel Curtain defense. That 10th round pick, once overlooked and underestimated, was about to help build one of the greatest dynasties in NFL history, the rise of the Steel Curtain. By the early 1970s, Chuck Noll's vision was becoming reality. The Steelers, once the league's punching bag, were now young, hungry, and built on defense. At the heart of that transformation was a group of men who would change football forever. Mean Joe Green, Ernie Holmes, Dwight White, and L.C. Greenwood. Together, they became known as the Steel Curtain, a wall of fury that offenses couldn't break. Greenwood brought finesse to the force. While Green overpowered and Lambert intimidated, Greenwood attacked with precision, using his long arms, quick burst, and perfect timing. He didn't just sack quarterbacks, he disrupted entire offenses. By 1972, the Steelers had made the playoffs for the first time in decades. The following seasons turned them into a powerhouse, a defense that symbolized Pittsburgh's working-class spirit. Tough, relentless, unbreakable. And as the Steelers began their climb toward history, Greenwood was no longer just a quiet 10th-round pick. He was the soul of the Steel Curtain. Super Bowl glory, the sack artist who shined brightest. When the Pittsburgh Steelers reached the Super Bowl in the mid-1970s, they weren't just representing a team. They represented a blue-collar nation built on grit and pride. And at the center of that rise stood Greenwood, 6'6", lean, and lightning quick, ready to prove that hard work could silence every doubt. Super Bowl IX, the first crown. January 12, 1975, Tulane Stadium, New Orleans. The opponent, Minnesota Vikings, led by Canton. It was a cold, defensive battle, perfect for the Steelers. While Mean Joe Green clogged the middle, Greenwood dominated the edge. Every time Tarkenton tried to escape, Greenwood was there, deflecting passes and collapsing pockets. The Vikings never found rhythm. Pittsburgh won 16-6, claiming their first Lombardi trophy. In the locker room, Greenwood just smiled and said, "We're not done yet." Super Bowl X, the night of the gold shoes. A year later in Miami, the Steelers faced Dallas, America's team. Greenwood laced up his now iconic gold cleats, shining under the orange bowl lights. From the first snap, he took over the game. For sacks on Roger Staubach, relentless pressure, and chaos every down. Staubach later admitted, he was impossible to get away from that day. The Steelers won 21-17, and though Lynn Swann's catches stole headlines, inside the locker room everyone knew Greenwood was the real difference maker. The dynasty marches on. In the years that followed, Greenwood and the Steel Curtain became unstoppable, winning 4 Super Bowls and defining a new era of defensive dominance. He earned 6 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pro selections, and the respect of every opponent. He wasn't just a pass rusher. He was a technician, mastering leverage, timing, and discipline. When chaos hit the field, teammates looked to Greenwood, calm, confident, unshakable. Quiet greatness. What made Greenwood special wasn't noise, it was grace. He never sought attention. He let his play speak. While Green, Lambert, and Blunt became household names, Greenwood stayed grounded, proud to represent the black and gold. By the end of the 1970s, he had 4 rings, elite stats, and unquestioned respect. He helped redefine defense, turning Pittsburgh into a symbol of toughness and unity. But even after all the glory, the recognition he truly deserved never came. The next chapter of his story wouldn't be about victory, but about silence. The silence of being overlooked. Overshadowed greatness. Living in the shadows of legends. By the end of the 1970s, the Pittsburgh Steelers had become a dynasty, 4 Super Bowls, a defense that defined an era. Names like Mean Joe Green, Jack Lambert, and Mel Blount were immortalized, yet one man, Greenwood, rarely got the same spotlight. Inside the locker room, everyone knew his value. He wasn't loud or flashy, just dependable, disciplined, and dominant. He didn't care about headlines. He cared about winning. The quiet star. Greenwood never demanded attention. He led by example, calm, professional, and unshakably consistent. Teammates said he was a star who didn't act like one. Even Joe Green admitted, when lined up next to you, you knew you were going to win that play. He brought balance to a defense full of fire, the silent strength that kept the machine running. Overshadowed by greatness. Ironically, the very success he helped create worked against him. The Steelers had so many legends that Greenwood's brilliance was often buried beneath the team's collective glory. Still, the stats told the truth. 78 career sacks, unofficially. 6 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pro selections, and countless clutch performances in championship games. But recognition never caught up. Year after year, others received the spotlight while Greenwood quietly stood in the shadows, respected by all, remembered by few. He never complained. He just kept giving back to his community, mentoring young players, and representing the Steelers' values with humility. He wasn't the loudest voice, but he was one of the strongest hearts the franchise ever had. The man who helped build a dynasty was somehow left standing outside the gates of Canton. The Hall of Fame snub, the injustice that never made sense. For every great NFL player, the dream is simple: win championships, earn respect, and one day be enshrined in the Pro Football Hall of Fame. For L.C. Greenwood, that final honor never came. And to this day, fans and teammates still ask the same question: how could they leave him out? A resume worthy of Canton, Greenwood was the definition of greatness. For Super Bowls, 6 Pro Bowls, 2 All-Pro selections, and some of the biggest defensive performances in Super Bowl history. He wasn't just part of a dynasty. He helped build it. Yet, every year, his name was passed over. No ceremony, no bust, just silence. The forgotten legend. Some say Greenwood was too humble, a quiet player in a loud era. Others blame the Steelers paradox, a team so full of legends that even the great ones got lost in the crowd. But those who played with him knew better. Chuck Noll called him the perfect professional. Joe Green said, "He made my job easier." If the Hall of Fame honors those who shape football, then Greenwood's absence remains one of its biggest mistakes. Steelers Nation never forgot. Fans still carry his name. Signs reading, "What about LC?" appear every August in Canton. Petitions, tributes, and stories keep his legacy alive. Even after his passing in 2013, the love for him never faded. He wasn't just a Steeler. He was the soul of the Steel Curtain. L.C. Greenwood didn't need a gold jacket to prove his greatness. He already wore gold shoes, and that was enough to make him immortal. Legacy beyond recognition, remembering the gold shoes. When L.C. Greenwood retired after the 1981 season, there was no big farewell or emotional press conference, just quiet dignity, like the way he played. In 13 seasons, he became one of the most consistent and respected defensive ends in NFL history. For Super Bowls, 6 Pro Bowls, and the respect of every man who faced him. He was more than a pass rusher. He was a symbol of discipline and class. Those gold shoes weren't for show. They represented a player who stood out by effort, not ego. Life after football. After retiring, Greenwood stayed in Pittsburgh, running a successful business and mentoring young athletes. When asked about the Hall of Fame snub, he'd simply smile and say, "My teammates know what I did." That's enough. That quiet confidence defined him long after football. The legacy lives on. When Greenwood passed away in 2013, Pittsburgh mourned deeply. Fans wore gold shoes in tribute, teammates shared memories, and the Steelers called him a cornerstone of our legacy. Today, his name represents quiet greatness, a reminder that legends don't need constant praise. Their legacy speaks for itself. Every time the black and gold take the field, a little part of L.C. Greenwood still lives in that defense. Calm, powerful, and unforgettable. He may not be in Canton, but in the hearts of Steelers Nation, number 68 will always be immortal. For Super Bowls, 6 Pro Bowls, a lifetime of excellence, and yet, somehow, no Hall of Fame. It doesn't seem right, because if you watched him play, if you saw the gold shoes flying off the line, you knew you were witnessing something special. L.C. Greenwood wasn't just a part of the Steel Curtain. He was the Steel Curtain. He didn't need to roar to be heard. He didn't need headlines to prove his worth. He let his play do the talking, and the game still echoes with his name. From the quiet streets of Canton, Mississippi, to the roaring crowds of Three Rivers Stadium, Greenwood built his legacy not on fame, but on character. He proved that greatness doesn't always come with a spotlight. Sometimes, it's the quiet ones who leave the loudest impact. He left behind 4 rings, endless memories, and a story that still inspires generations of Steelers fans, and every underdog who's ever been told they weren't good enough. And maybe, one day, the Hall of Fame will realize what the world of football already knows. That L.C. Greenwood wasn't just a Steeler. He was a cornerstone of NFL history. This has been Black and Gold Legacy, where we honor the legends, heartbreaks, and untold stories that built the Pittsburgh Steelers. If L.C. Greenwood's story inspired you, don't forget to like this video, share it with Steelers Nation, and subscribe so you never miss another chapter of Black and Gold history. Because some legends deserve to be remembered. And Elsie Greenwood is one of them.